of Mississippi. This is a Photoshop practice video, and we are going to do a couple of things here. We're going to adjust a photo to be high resolution for print purposes, and then we're going to place it in a layout after we modify the image here. So I'm providing an image for you for the students who are doing the practice. So you can download that image first before starting. And it's a PNG. This is a low quality image file as of now, but we are going to adjust this to be a high quality image file that will be more appropriate for printing. Now, I've got it on my desktop here, and we're going to import this to Photoshop first. And when you are adjusting a photo in Photoshop, you don't necessarily have to create a document in Photoshop. Really, all you have to do is either click and drag the photo to the Photoshop icon, or you can do File Open and open the photograph. We don't want anything around it. We just want just the photograph here. And if you take your own photographs, or if you grab images, royalty-free images off the internet or anything like that, a lot of times they're going to be low resolution and they're going to not be editable once you get them into Photoshop. So we have to adjust that first. And basically what I want to do first is I want to turn this into a smart object. And what that does is when we turn it into a smart object, that basically makes all of the information in this image file available. And then we're going to rasterize this photo, and that is going to make all of the pixels in the photograph editable. So we're going to select this with the move tool here. Make sure it's selected. Make sure you have your auto select and your transform controls here checked. That way when we click on the object, we see the transform controls and we auto select it. And we're going to go first to layer, and we're going to go to smart object and convert to smart object. And then we're just going to go right back to layer, and we're going to rasterize this smart object. So now that it is turned into a smart object and rasterized, now we can edit this photo. And basically what I would like to do before we adjust the resolution is I would like to make this background transparent for placing in a layout with a colored background. So all that we see are the hands and the globe itself. So I am going to go over here, and you've got several selection tools here in your toolbox. We've got what they call the marquee tool, which gives us basic shapes like square, circle, single row, or column. That's when we click and drag an area, we can just select that geometric area. The other selection tool is called a lasso tool, and there's several of those. There's a regular lasso tool, the polygonal, which will be more angular, and the magnetic. So if you have a very curvy or more intricate edge to a shape that you're trying to cut around or trace around, the magnetic will basically cling to it like a magnet. So it's much easier to do you know, things like human forms that are not so graphic, some things that are a little bit more natural or organic shapes. They're a little bit easier to accomplish with the magnetic lasso tool. So those are tools where they're more freehand. You click and you drag around until you've enclosed that shape, and then it has made that selection. And then we also have our magic wand tool, and the magic wand tool has the regular magic wand and the quick selection tool. This allows you to select more quickly. This automatically selects and gauges the edges. So if you have a graphic like this one where we have very clean edges that are easy to really detect for the program. This magic wand tool will work the best. If you have some texture in the background, sometimes you will have to adjust the tolerance of what it's picking up. For instance, this is picking up 50, so it's gonna, when I click on this, it's picking up pretty much everything. You can see the little moving line. And with any of these selection tools, they create a moving line once you've made that selection. And from there, you can either copy or adjust that selection in any way that you need to. The quick selection tool is very similar. It's just going to allow you to click and drag over certain areas. As you can see, I'm just continuing, but sometimes it picks up too much. That's when you can hold the Option key and deselect if you select too much and that sort of thing. For this practice, however, we are going to use the quick selection or the regular magic wand tool because it's the easiest in this case. But again, these three selection tools, the marquee tool, the lasso, and the magic wand, these are all types of selection tools that you can use when you're grabbing images or cutting things out of a photograph or even lightening a certain area. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the magic wand tool. And what I'm going to do is I am going, since we have a high tolerance here, it's going to pick up pretty much everything that we want to pick up. So I can see my moving line is going around all of this here at the top. But I need to get this at the bottom as well. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key so I can continue selecting. I'm going to grab this little area in the middle and this left side. So now I've got every side in every area. And now that I've got it selected, now I can just click the delete button and we can get rid of the background here. So anytime you see the checkerboard, that means transparent. And anytime you still see the moving line there, you're not going to be able to select another tool until that's removed. So after you've made your selection, you've deleted the background, just click over to the side to make the moving line go away. So now we have the transparent background. We can also, modify this image. PDFs are going to print a little darker. So if this seems a little dark in the globe, or those two colors seem a little close together, we can make adjustments to that. So we can even use our selection tool to do that as well. For this case, instead of using the magic wand, I might use the quick selection tool this time. And just select this whole globe. And so now I've just got the globe selected, and I can go into image and adjust, go to adjustments, and I can adjust the brightness or contrast of this. I can make it a little brighter, I can make it a little bit more contrasting, and it's only affecting just the selection that I have made. So I'm going to make this a little lighter. Now I'm going to click off of it to get rid of the moving line. I'll go back to my magic wand tool here. So now we've made those adjustments. I'm also going to go up here to mode because we want our image mode to be, right now it's an RGB. A PNG is designed to be for web or computer. So if you get anything from your cell phone or the internet, usually it's going to be RGB color mode and low resolution. So that's what we're going to adjust as well. So since we are designing this technically for print, we're going to switch to a CMYK color model. And you can see how the color changes here. So you are welcome to continue modifying the brightness or contrast of this. That's really up to you. But you can see that CMYK is going to limit the amount. It's going to look a little more dull. So you could always select the globe again, or maybe just do that after you do the color model. And you can adjust that just again as well. Any of the automatic adjustments you can do just a little lighter. So now the moving line's gone. We've adjusted the color model to CMYK. And now we need to adjust the resolution. So I'm going to go back to image and go to image size. That's where you can adjust the resolution there. Now right now what this is telling me is that it's 72 pixels per inch, or PPI, and this picture is really large at this size, but this would not look very good printed. It would look pixelated, so we want to adjust this resolution. The optimum is 300 for high resolution, but at least 150 PPI is considered higher resolution. So I'm going to go ahead and put this at the optimal. And in our case, we do not need our image to be 26 by 20 inches. It's huge. We're going to design this for a vertical 11 by 17 or tabloid size poster. So the maximum width, we're using it vertical, so the maximum width is really 11 inches that we would even have this image. So I'm going to punch in the maximum width of what we would even need it for our size or trim size of our paper that we're using. So make sure your link button is linked here, linking the height and the width. What that does is it automatically adjusts the scale and proportion of the image based on the height and width here. If you don't have that clicked, it will skew or distort your image. So if I were to make this 12 or 18, you can see how it would distort that image. So we always want that checked when we are adjusting the size here. And we're going to keep that a 300 PPI, and as you can see now, we can see that more clearly at that size. You also want resample clicked. That preserves the enlargement and preserves the details there. So we've got our resolution at 300, and we've adjusted the size to be a little smaller. You don't want your images to be too big. You want them just a little bit bigger than what you actually want to use in the layout. So if I plan on scaling an image, the total width of the page, that would be 11 inches. I'll probably make it a little smaller than that, but if you have to shrink it down a little bit, it will not pixelate. If you have to enlarge it further than what you intend the size to be, then it could still pixelate even if it's a high resolution. So it's always important to scale or have your images just a little bit over what you plan on using in your layout at that higher resolution. So I'm going to click OK. And so now you'll see it kind of jump. You can always do Command and your minus and plus keys to zoom in and out. So this adjusted the resolution to a high resolution. So now we want to save this as a higher resolution file or a high quality image file. So I'm going to go up to File, Save As, and I am going to put my last name first and then just rename this Globe Hands, and I'm going to make sure that this is a TIFF. A TIFF is going to be a higher, better quality image file, usually used for print. So you can use JPEGs for print as well. They're just not as good a quality. JPEGs are used a little bit more for web or internet purposes or mobile purposes. You can also save this as a Photoshop file. which will allow you to alter. If you had multiple layers, you would still have all your layers in place. So if you have multiple layers or you have modified an image and done more to it than just taking out the background or adjusted the resolution, then you might want to save it as a Photoshop file first so that you have an editable file, and then also save it as an image file. Once you save it as an image file, a JPEG or a TIFF, PNG, any of those image files, whether for print or web, it automatically flattens all your layers and you can't access them. So in this case, we don't have really any layers. We're not adding much to this photo. So I'm going to save this to my desktop. Now when you get the next image screen here, we also want to save this transparent background. So you'll see an option to save that or to have that box checked. So make sure that is checked. A TIFF will preserve a transparent background. A PNG, if you were doing this for web, would also preserve a transparent background. However, a JPEG will not. It would turn white again. Or if you saved it as a PDF, that would also turn white again. So you always want to make sure that if you are trying to preserve a transparent background, that you use a TIFF if you're doing it for print or a PNG for web. So I'm going to click OK here. All right. So once we have this completed, now we're going to open InDesign. And I am going to create a new document. This document is going to be similar to a poster, or we're going to imagine this be a print poster. So this is for print. This is going to be tabloid, which is 11 by 17. We are going to use vertical here. I am going to add a bleed margin to this because I'm going to use a neutral colored background. So here is our 11 by 17. You can see it's a lot longer. And here's my bleed margin. Here's my text margin inside the page. So I am going to first, I'm going to create a background color for this that's very neutral. So I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to make this a gray. And you're welcome to go into your color picker and choose a unique neutral if that's what you would like to do. I'm going to change this to just a lighter gray here. And I'm going to go back to my selection tool, and now I'm going to go ahead and do another layer. I'm going to lock that. So now I'm going to make a frame for my image, and I'm going to take the image to the text margin here. I'm not going to bleed the image, but I am going to take it to the text margin. We want it to be almost the total width of the page. And while I have my frame selected, I'm going to Command D, or you can go to File, Place here. And I'm going to grab the TIFF that I created. And it is a little bigger than the frame, so I can adjust this. Go back to my selection tool. I'm going to select, double click inside the frame to select the image. And I'm going to scale this down to fit inside the frame. Pull this in because I'm going to make this a little bigger. So I'm going to use my Command Shift to scale the whole image bigger. Now that I have it inside the frame and it's fitting, now I can select the frame and everything and adjust the scale here. So remember to use your Command Shift keys or Control Shift keys if you're on a PC. And I always let go of my mouse or trackpad first and then let go of the shortcut keys. Sometimes if you let go of the shortcut keys first, it'll jump and still skew your image, which you don't want. So here now we have the image in place. We see that our background is transparent. If we look at print view, we can see that there. Okay, so this is basically the practice. When we go to our links window up here, we can see the image that we placed, and I can go and I can see the information on this image. I can see that it's CMYK color mode. I can see that it's high resolution. My actual PPI is 300, and the size and dimensions, they have it in pixels, so it's a little different, but it is large enough there. So once you've got your image placed and you can see it in your links window, now we can save this for turning in for grading. So again, keeping my file name here, this will be the Photoshop practice. Remember, last name first. I'm going to save this to my desktop, and once you've saved it, now we can package it. So I'll package, make sure all my file names are consistent. And put it to the desktop. Here we do want a print PDF. So now I'm going to minimize these, and here's my packaged folder. I'm going to look inside this to make sure everything's there. So I have my PDF, I have my INDD file, my IDML, which is compatible with older versions of InDesign, and then make sure you look in your links window. You should see the image that you adjusted and placed into your layout. So that's all good there. So now that I know that everything is in the package folder that should be, now I can select the folder, right click or control click, and compress. So now I have my zip file. This is what you would drag to your designated class section folder in Box for submitting the practice. Okay, so that is the practice for the Photoshop. If you want to modify and adjust the colors from what I did here, that's fine. Just make sure that it is nice and contrasting, that everything shows up clearly and effectively. Okay, thank you for listening. Good luck.